Guys, and welcome to Betwixt the Books, although it's just me today, not Gretchen. Yesterday we did book club, so I'm used to my normal spiel. Ooh, okay, we're gonna try a thing. I'm gonna try and review a thing. We'll see if I can even do it. It's been a little while since I've read this guy, but I didn't make a formal video on it, so I figured that I should do that while I have some semblance of a brain. Big surprise, it's a young reader. This book is Curse of the Boggin, which is the first book in the library series by DJ Michaela. Now, some of you might know, if you've been watching us for a little while, that Pendragon was my very favorite book series growing up. And DJ Michaela wrote that series. If you also didn't know, he wrote for TV shows like Flight 29 Down and Are You Afraid of the Dark? So he's definitely a person who knows how to write for kids, and I don't know if you could see the cover here, knows how to write spooky things for kids too. The reason I wanted to talk about this, not only is it exciting for me because my favorite childhood author is doing new things, but I finally am seeing something that could maybe rival R.L. Stine's Goosebumps in the department. Now, Goosebumps is kind of a divisive series in the kids area. There's a lot of kids who really love it. I was one of those kids growing up reading, not just that, but like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I really liked that sort of creepy story, which I think may or may not have also caught on to my adult perspective, where I really just love horror books in general. So there's that as well. And this guy is like another really good, just built-in action-adventure sort of spooky stories, and I'm excited about it. But then again, you get all of those parents that are like, oh no, it's too scary for them, and kids that are afraid of them. Gretchen wouldn't have read any of the sort of scary stories growing up just because that's not the type of kid she is, and that's fine, but I don't think that all kids should have their options taken away from them because some kids don't like it. You don't have to read it. If you don't want to read it, you don't have to. So anyway, I'm glad that there's a new sort of spooky story setting that's coming out, and he has said that although you do need to read the first book first, after that you can read them in any order, so it's definitely like Goosebumps and that idea that they're non-linear, they each are their own story, self-contained, that just live in this world, and is a little bit creepy. Curse of the Boggin is the introduction to the world, and it is definitely an interesting world. Our protagonist sort of inherits this key that when placed into any lock will open a door to the library, the series title. The library is filled with books that are actual stories of actual people. Some of them are unfinished, and some of them have been unfinished for a very long time. The people who have the keys are those in charge of finishing the stories if for some reason stories are left open-ended. The idea being that then that person can sort of be free, so you're freeing their soul in a way. The Boggin is the big bad in this guy, which is a particular creature who manifests mostly as an old lady, but is more or less bad luck. She can push and sort of work and kill people, actually, which is a bit terrifying, but for the most part she just causes fear and anxiety in people, which then leads them to do stupid things, which for some means murder, death. It happens, guys. So we're following Marcus, our protagonist, as he tries to finish off his father's story as well as the best friend of his father's story. And again, it's introducing us to the world, so there's a lot of exposition type stuff going on in this book, but it's definitely one I would say to look out for. And when later books come out, I'm definitely going to be reading them, not just because he's one of my favorite authors, but because I want to see what he's going to do with this and how he's sort of going to spin it. He has free reign to do any sort of magical creature. He can make it mostly historical, he can make it futuristic. the library has all of these stories together and allows them to like travel throughout time, and all of these things are very interesting concepts and allow him a lot of room. Where Pendragon was a very self-contained series, he knew it was going to be 10 books, he knew what each thing was going to be. The way that he is structuring this story allows it to be open-ended, more like a TV show where you can do episodic things, and like there are characters who might go across and there might be overarching plot lines that sort of come together, but for the most part you can go wherever you want and go as crazy or as normal as you want as well. So I am excited for it. What do you guys think about scary stories for kids? Do you think that it's not something that should happen, or like wait till they're older? Maybe scary stories should be in teen. It's pretty small of a young reader, and it has very large text. So it's definitely leaning more towards the younger spectrum in young readers. I would say 9, 10 rather than 7, but still definitely, you know, not a 12, 13, 14-year-old. Do you guys want me to do more reviews of young readers? I do have a video planned where I'm going to be discussing a couple urban fantasy books, because those are other things that I've been really enjoying right now. I've apparently decided that I'm into fantasy at the moment, partially because of all of these young readers, which are very fantasy oriented, and also just sort of having that break that I needed from it for a long time. Last year I was reading a lot of science fiction. This year looks like fantasy is the thing. It may or may not be the thing for the rest of the year, but at the moment it's what I've been really enjoying, and I want to discuss urban fantasy in particular because I'm still not a big fan of high fantasy, this sort of action adventure fantasy for children I can do, and urban fantasy, which is much more visceral in a lot of ways. I'm going to discuss that later though. I hope you guys had a good week. I hope next week is awesome for you, and I will see you again soon. Bye!